All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age.
On the last program, we were addressing young people based upon Solomon's statement in Ecclesiastes 12 at verse 1. He said, "Remember also thy Creator in the days of thy youth, before the evil days come and the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them." Young people, finest generation, as we said, that the world has ever produced, living today. There's no question about that. And we can't say enough to our young folk, and we suggested last week that they may not be listening to the program, though we do receive quite a bit of mail from young people, and many of them view the program. But if you should tape the program, and it could be handed down, children, grandchildren, hopefully it will do some good. You couldn't address a finer, more influential group of people than our young folk. As a matter of fact, we can just refer to them as teenagers. No question about that. Pure and innocent, as we pointed up, from birth until, of course, they reach the age of accountability. We observed also that in that transition from childhood to adulthood, there are many biological changes that can be productive of psychological problems. Now, we pointed up the importance of a great deal of understanding on the part of parents. We ought to know we've been through that same period of time, and we love our children, and so we understand the adjustments that must be made, and it's not quite natural for them because they haven't had the background, the experience to make the proper decisions in many of these moves and many of these areas of change. So a great deal of understanding is needed on the part of parents, and almost unlimited patience on the part of you youngsters, you teenagers. It's so important. Oh, I know how it is when we're very, very small. We think our parents know everything. Oh boy, they're just as wise as that. As we grow a little bit older and we associate more with the world, we begin to think our parents are a little outdated, you know, and just don't know a great deal. And pretty soon there, it just seems like, man, they are old-fashioned, they are out of date. But as we grow and mature, we begin to think, you know, our parents were pretty wise. And when I get grown and have children of my own, I think my dad was a gem of wisdom. I mean, he knew what he was talking about. We passed through that. We understand that. And these adjustments in adolescence, that period from puberty to, about 20 years of age, transition from childhood to adulthood, many problems. And the teenager doesn't always understand, so he may withdraw and shut other people out, and he may even strike out at those who try to help him for his own good. That's why parenting is so important. That's why home life is so vital to his development. Make him feel a part. Be sure that he is informed so that he will know that he belongs. Assign him certain tasks to perform for the family. And by all means, in all of the recreational activities of the family, be sure that your youth are included in a major way. When he's informed, he knows he belongs. Left in the dark, he feels alone. Now, we've pointed up that these adjustments are basically the teenager's responsibility. But young person, let me speak to you on another subject briefly, and we'll get to some other matters, hopefully, even in this broadcast. We have a number of questions that have been asked, and some of them we need to answer. But to the young person, there are many adjustments, as we pointed out, but in addition to that, there is the tremendous responsibility of your personal influence upon others. And you know, no other human being can provide for an influential life for you. You must do that. Your influence is your personal responsibility. You remember in Proverbs 22 at verse 1, a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver and gold. What is the wise man saying here? Now listen carefully. This is spiritual in nature. And I understand when we're a part of this whole world, we don't quite grasp spiritual things with the power and strength that we should. But it is true. You can view it any way you want to. And it may be that you'll be an old man or an elderly lady before you really comprehend the significance of this. But a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. Loving favor rather than silver and gold. There are things more important than material wealth. One is a good reputation, a good name, recognized for being upright, morally pure, beneficial, helpful to others. A good name, rather to be chosen than great riches. It rather to be what? Chosen. It doesn't happen accidentally. You cannot grow up in this world thoughtless, without any regard for things spiritual, unconcerned particularly in any particular way with your peers, and have a good name. No, it has to be chosen. You have to make up your mind, this is where I'm going, this is what I really want. And so that regulates every phase of life, doesn't it? Trying to be the right kind of influence. You pick the right kind of companions in life. That's so important. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 33. Paul said, be not deceived, evil companions corrupt good morals. Oh, now someone says, now I can handle it. Now I know how that is. I understand that in adolescence. I know about that in youth. Yes, sir. Man, I whip the world. Jump a 10-story building flat-footed. Yep, I can. Don't be deceived. Do not be deceived. Evil companions corrupt good morals. Young people, take some fatherly advice. Be careful in the selection of your bosom companions, those to whom you are closest, whom you love and appreciate most. Select them from a high standard of morality. Select them from an upright, decent group. Be very, very careful. You know, it's amazing in our land today of enlightenment, everything available to us, and yet there is that which is bearing upon our young people in a detrimental way. Colleges, universities, co-educational, that's fine. Boys and girls, and then the first thing you know, you've got dormitories, co-ed. You've got boys and girls in the same dormitory. Well, somebody says, preacher, what's wrong with that? Friends, the trend in our society is morally downward. We are feeding our children a diet of filth, immorality, and ungodliness. Oh, then we are providing an environment in which they can put that kind of immorality and ungodliness into practice with the least bit of effort. Well, now, a young person may say, well, preacher, you've described it. I mean, that's the way our world is. What am I going to do? But hey. Joseph, 17 years old, sold by his own brethren. Harden your heart, wouldn't it, if you weren't very careful? Oh, no, Joseph was a servant of God. Sold into foreign slavery and served as a slave 22 years before he ever saw his father again. Man, that would embitter you. No, not if you serve the Lord. What about your age? Friend, 17 is the strongest time you'll have, but you've got to focus. You've got to determine whom you serve. You've got to decide which direction that you plan to go. That is fundamentally important. It is vital to your welfare, physically and spiritually. But with the wickedness and the ungodliness that characterizes our age today, preacher, we have a very difficult time. Yes, it's not easy. But you are responsible for your own influence. You are an individual, and God has said, I'll never forsake thee. Neither will I in any wise fail thee. Trust him. Put your trust in the Lord and live a righteous, upright life. And it is enhanced by the selection of the right kind of companions. Don't be deceived. Evil companions corrupt good morals. But then when you stop to think about it too, in dealing with young people and talking to youth, highly intelligent, finest people in the world, the right places are important. The places you frequent regularly. Oh, where do you go? That's important, isn't it? I remember I grew up in a small town, and there was a pool hall in town. My dad never let me go inside that pool hall. As a matter of fact, he'd rather I'd walk on the other side of the street from the pool. Well, somebody says, what's wrong with pool? What's wrong with the game of billiards? Oh, nothing. A fine game. Game of skill. Well, that's fine. No, nothing wrong with it. That's not the point. Who, at least in our town, would hang out at the pool hall? Oh, those who were not productively engaged, those who had no job, those who were looking for some kind of, situation where they could come out on top, those people who were always preying upon others. You had that kind of people who would gather in that place. Well, now that's not always true. Well, certainly not. It's not all, but it was in our town. Well, then what is the best thing for me to do? Stay away from it. Shun the very appearance of evil, Paul said. What's that? He didn't say just shun evil. Everybody knows that. He said shun the very appearance of evil. Oh, that's important. I need to avoid those circumstances, those relationships, those places that would tarnish my reputation. But more than that, that would influence my thinking. And so many times, you read about killings and murders, manslaughter, every kind of thing today, and it's a tragic circumstance, and it is so frequent in occurrence today. If you read the entire article, however, not always, but many times, most of the time, it's in the wee hours of the morning, in a bar or a parking lot where people might be after drinking rather heavily, and the first thing you know, there is a disagreement, a disturbance, and one man happens to be packing, and pow, you've got well, how can I avoid that? I've avoided that all my life. I'm never there in the wee hours of the morning. It gets dark, it's time to do whatever you have to do by way of decency and uprightness, and go home and go to bed. Somebody said, yeah, but preacher, you don't have any fun. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, you need to think about this thing, young person, with regard to fun. Yeah, I know about that. Sure, I understand the vigor of youth, but there are places that you need to avoid, the right places. Oh, by the way, the dance hall. You think of that now, the dance hall. Well, someone says now, preacher, what's wrong with you? Think about it for a moment. The dance, the dim lights, the close embrace, the melodious music. Think about it. It's conducive to arousing the fleshly desires. It arouses lust if we aren't very, very careful. And almost invariably associated with the dance is drinking, and then ultimately prostitution and adultery. Well, somebody says, how can I avoid that? Never been there. I don't go. That's the way you avoid that. You just shun the appearance of evil. You stay away from those places that could be detrimental to your spiritual welfare. Oh, and dressed up, it amounts to the same thing. Yes, junior, senior prom. Well, now someone says, preacher, that's just a one-shot proposition. That's the way we reason about sin, isn't it? Couldn't be too bad. That's just a one-shot proposition. There are alternatives, to the junior-senior prom. Sure, I know that youngsters love one another, and I know they come to appreciate one another. That's true. And there are many ways they can show this. One of the best ways to show it is to maintain a righteous demeanor, conduct in their presence, and to seek to lead them to the Master by your influence, by your example. Now, we can't do that and engage in worldly affairs. We need to understand that. But then also, there is the matter with regard to the influence of a young person, the right kind of conduct. Paul said, watch ye, be strong. Quit you like men. Oh, what's this? Behave yourselves like grown men. Sure, you can handle that. Now, what is his thought here? Well, it's not that I have the background in education or this degree or that, and I can handle any kind of, that's not what he's talking about. No. A grown man of sound mind and sober disposition knows the difference between right and wrong. So when he said, quit ye like men, that word quit means behave. Behave yourselves like sober-minded, grown men. That's the way we need to conduct ourselves in this old world, because Satan is the god of this world, 2 Corinthians 4 at verse 4. And his resourcefulness is unlimited. Oh man, he has every kind of weapon to throw at us. And so I need to be as careful as I possibly can. So then, right conduct. I remember that Paul said, what is it, Ephesians 5:29? Let no corrupt speech proceed out of your mouth, but such as is good for edifying, as the need may be, that it might give grace to them that hear. What's this? Don't let corrupt speech proceed out of your mouth. If we aren't careful in youth, it's the easiest thing in the world. We hear so much filthy language. We hear so much cursing. We just almost naturally, almost automatically take up that kind of thing, and we're using that terminology also. Friends, that's tragic. Paul said, let no corrupt speech proceed out of your mouth, but such as is good for edifying, as the need may be, that it might give grace to them that hear. Well, now, someone says, though, preacher, these things are not natural. You're not right. These things are spiritual. But young people, and I understand the difficulty in comprehending this, but that's who you are. You're not a physical being in a physical world with physical needs primarily. No, you're a spiritual being made in the image and the likeness of God, possessed of free moral agency. You will live forever. There are but two destinies for the souls of men. Give it some thought. Yes, it takes effort. No, it isn't easy. There's no question about it. You have to make it a point in life to maintain a right influence upon others. But then that maintaining a proper influence is your responsibility. You know, that even involves proper dress, doesn't it? If we aren't careful, today we see so much nudity, so much improper attire. Young people wear hardly anything many times, and not all young people, but some, and think nothing about it. They're not guilty in their thoughts. This is just the way things are. This is the way we dress. This is what our society accepts. Young lady, you are a temptation to those about you. Whose adorning, let it not be the outward adorning, wearing jewels of gold or silver or the putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart. 1 Timothy chapter 2, you remember, verses 8 and 9. What is Paul saying? Is he saying it's wrong to wear jewelry? Why, certainly not. If he were saying that, he's saying that it's wrong to wear clothing, gold or silver, or the putting on of apparel. No. What is he saying? The contrast. But let it be the hidden man of the heart in the incorruptible apparel of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price. So place the emphasis on the spiritual man. That's the only way you can have the right kind of influence. That's the only way you can do those things that are pleasing to God and that will impact upon the lives of others in a productive way. So how you dress is important, and there's no double standard, by the way. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God. Oh, indeed. In Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. It is so important that we dress ourselves in a becoming moral fashion. Nudity is a popular thing in this world, but it is a terrible sin. There's no question. So young people, we love you. Yeah, that's why we talk basically and bluntly about these things. And that's why we say such is your responsibility. If I could live my life in such a way as to provide for your salvation, I would be happy to do so. That's out of the question. You're an individual. You can hear what I say. You can make whatever application of it you will, and I trust that it will help in the betterment of your life. Think about it. But now, we also said that a number of questions have arisen, and someone has asked, does the Church of Christ believe in tithing? Changing subject here in the middle of the stream, but wanted to say those things to the youngsters and get to these questions that have been asked. We'll not be able to handle all of them. But that question, does the Church of Christ believe in tithing? Let me just say this by way of introduction. No one man is a spokesman for the Lord's church. Let's say. Each man is responsible personally to the Lord. You see, in the church, we have men of varying degrees of ability and fidelity. So no man or group of men can write up rules and regulations to govern the Lord's church. Why, certainly not. I can only tell you what the Lord said. As Peter said in 1 Peter 4, verse 11, if any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of God. We understand that. So then, I am obligated to tell you only what the Lord has said on the subject. And you remember, of course, that this thing of tithing, tithe means a tenth, originated with Abraham as he returned from the slaughter of the kings. Genesis chapter 14. He was met by Melchizedek, king of Salem, and he was a priest of God Most High. And unto him, verse 20, Genesis chapter 14, Abraham gave a tenth of all. That's tithing, giving a tenth. And I remember that Jacob, in fleeing from his brother Esau, in chapter 28 of Genesis, promised the Lord that if he would keep him in his care, provide him with food and attire or clothing, that he would give a tenth of all his income unto Jehovah. So that was a pledge on Jacob's part. Now, when the children of Israel were delivered from the bondage of Egypt, came into the wilderness and over to Mount Sinai, God gave a written law to Israel through the lawgiver Moses. And in Numbers chapter 18, 21 beginning, he required Israel to tithe. All of them were to give a tenth, not only of their monetary income, but also a tenth of the herbs grown in their garden, a tenth of all of their increase. And why was that required in the law of Moses? Oh, to supply the needs of the tribe of Levi. You see, the Levites were the priestly tribe, and they were not given a portion of land in ancient Israel when the land was divided up. No. They had the cities of refuge, of course, and they dwelt there, but the tithe was to support the Levites who cared for the spiritual affairs of ancient Israel. Now, the law of Moses, the law that required them to tithe, has been fulfilled, and it's been removed as a source of authority in religion. Jesus said, think not that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I came not to destroy, but to fulfill. Till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle shall in any wise pass from the law till all things be fulfilled. Oh, and I remember that he said to his disciples in Luke chapter 24, he said, this is that which I spake unto thee, all things that are written in the law of Moses, in the Psalms, and in the prophets concerning me hath fulfillment. So the law was a system of types and shadows, and of course prophecies, of which Christ is the antitype, the substance, and the fulfillment. So he's saying here in Luke 24 that those things that were written of him in the law have now been fulfilled. Oh, that's why he came then, to fulfill the law. If we had time to deal with all of it, why certainly. So having blotted out the bond written in ordinances, which was against us, which was contrary to us, he hath taken it out of the way, nailing it to his cross. Having despoiled the principalities and powers, he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. Let no man therefore judge you in respect of meat or drink or a new moon or a feast day or a Sabbath day, which are a shadow of the good things to come, but the body is Christ. Colossians 2, 14 through 17. What is he saying? The law has been fulfilled. Therefore, as a source of authority in matters religious, has been removed. So today, no man can take the law of Moses and say, now, Watkins, you're not obeying the Lord, you don't keep the Sabbath. No, if I kept the Sabbath, I'd lose my soul. Galatians 5 at verse 4. Ye who would be justified by the law, you're fallen away from grace. Keeping the Sabbath was a commandment of the law of Moses, which Christ fulfilled and removed as a source of authority in matters religious. Today, we hear Jesus Christ. And the only word we have from Christ is this blood-sealed covenant. So today, with regard to our giving, Oh, Paul said, as I gave order to the churches of Galatia, so also do ye. Upon the first day of the week, let each one of you lay by him in store, as God hath prospered him, that there be no gathering when I come. 1 Corinthians 16, beginning at verse 1. So we give in the Christian age as we have been prospered. Now, Paul said we should do this with liberality. Ah, yes, let him give with liberality, and God will bless us. Friends, a tithe, a tenth, in our enlightened and affluent society would hardly be a sacrifice, would it? We need to give as we have been prospered, and God has prospered us just beyond measure. Much more to be said on this subject. May God bless.
What a joy it has been to spend this time with you in your home. We would love to hear from you. Why not visit our website at preachingthegospeltv.com, and while you're there, sign the guest book so we may know who's viewing this program around the nation. If you would like a free cassette tape of this program, just pick up the phone and call us at 1-800-683-3120 or write to us at P.O. Box 1484, Dalton, Georgia 30722. Our email address is ptgwjw@aol.com. When you are requesting a tape, please include the program number you see on your screen. Maybe you want to study more about God's Word. If so, we can send you the first lesson in this 8-lesson series free of charge. These lessons are intended to help you gain a better understanding of God's Word. Your friends in the Churches of Christ have brought you this program today, and they would love to have you come and visit their services. If you need assistance in finding a congregation in your area, we would be glad to help you. Preaching the Gospel is under the oversight of the elders of the Highland Church of Christ in Dalton, Georgia. And now, back to my dad.
Most interesting, our young people, the finest group ever produced in this old world, have a tremendous influence upon their peers. Oh, but young person, that influence is yours. You must exercise yourself in a way to impact properly upon the lives of others. And when it comes to the various questions that have been asked, this thing of tithing, in the Christian age, it's a matter of sacrifice. I remember in Mark chapter 12, verse 41 beginning, the Lord sat down over against the treasure, watched the rich cast much in, but a little widow came by and cast in 2 mites. Oh, she cast in more than they all, the Lord said. Why? They of their superfluity did cast into the treasure. She of her want did cast in all that she had, even her living. So the Lord regulates or considers our giving more on what we have left after we give than on the amount that we give. So it's interesting to observe it's a condition of the heart. Give liberally, and the Lord will bless us.